Hey, welcome to today's episode. Today we're going to talk about what you do when your date does not go the way you thought it was going to go. I don't mean like a blind date kind of thing. I mean with your first responder, with your spouse, with your partner. If you are lucky enough to find a time where your partner's off and you're off and kids are taken care of and you actually have time, money, energy, space for just the two of you to go do something, you get out there and then it just really doesn't go the way that you thought it was going to go. It turns out kind of terrible or something like that. Have you ever been there? I know I certainly have had my fair share of them. And this episode came to me because just last night I had one of these experiences. And I thought it might be helpful to kind of walk through what you do with these experiences. I know I am not alone in having a bad date with my person I have been with a long time. I have no idea the story of blind dates, first dates. It's been so long since I've had that. I can't share that experience, but I can share the experience of being with somebody for a long time and having a bad date. Actually, we've had the good thing of having lots of dates lately because our younger child goes to Sea Scouts twice a week, but every Monday night in particular. Sea Scouts is like Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. You know, it's a scouting kind of activity for youth, but it is on a boat. So it's kind of awesome. We got connected to it about a year ago. My stepfather-in-law, he died and he was a fisherman, not professionally, but recreationally. And he loved being out on the ocean and out on his boat. That was just his passion and his hobby. And so, of course, when he died, he wanted his ashes scattered in the water. And so my mother-in-law had found this organization where they'll take you out on a boat and the boat is crewed. It's all crewed. It's driven. It's staffed, the whole shebang by youth. And she just thought that was really neat. It was a really neat way to honor her husband. And so we all went out on this boat, and that's when we found out who these kids were in this amazing program, this 100-year-old boat that they take out and learn how to take care of it and to navigate it and all this thing. So when our kids said yes to this, we're like, okay, we're in, because this child is not our yes child. From very little, it'd be like, do you want to go to Disneyland? No. Did you have such an amazing, awesome time that I saw you laughing and playing and having fun? No. So for this child to say yes, we're like, okay, we're in. We're going to do this, even though it means we have to drive an hour each way, sometimes up to an hour. Sometimes traffic is kind to us and it's not a whole hour, but to get to where these Sea Scout meetings are, it's in the next town down. And so Monday nights, it's a 2-hour meeting. It makes no sense for somebody to drop off, pick up, drop off. That's 4-hour driving for 2-hour meeting. So we've made this our date night, which is awesome. So every Monday night when my firefighter is not on shift, we all as a family drive down, take the kid to Sea Scouts, and then we go out to dinner. It's been super fun. Go to all these different places in this other town that's just far enough away that we really, you kind of know it, but we haven't really explored it. Monday night is so awesome because there's not a ton of people in the restaurants. We've been able to find places that have outdoor seating or have very few people in them, just maintaining that we're still pretty conscientious about our potential of spreading COVID because of course, being a first responder, you're around sick people. So we try and be pretty conscientious about not exposing other people. So it's been this amazing thing. And to have this regular date night about once a week, as we all know, it's not every week, it's a rotating shift, but it's just become this regular drumbeat, which is really nice. And, some of these dates have been super fun and interesting, and we have lots of things to talk about. And some, like last night, are a bit of a dudder. We went to a new place. And actually, I said, where do you want to go? And my partner was kind of thinking about it. I was driving. I just kind of started driving in a direction. And my partner made a suggestion. I was like, perfect. That was the place I was thinking of too. It was a Greek restaurant. We hadn't been to it. We'd seen it because there's a Mexican restaurant across the street that we had tried out that was new to us, a month ago or so. So we're kind of in line and we go up and we go to the place and figure out the menu. It takes a little bit for us to figure out the menu because my spouse has celiac. So we have to kind of vet the menu a bit and figure out what is going to be safe to eat. And we, especially Greek food, tend to share it, right? All the dips and yummy different things. We like to share our food and be able to try different things. So we order, wait for the food. The food comes over. We eat the food. The food's pretty good. There were some surprising things that were tasty. The hummus wasn't the best hummus I've ever had, but in general, it was pretty yummy. And the restaurant was a little bit surprising even because it was like redone and a little not fancy, but just nice. But the kitchen looked like this old greasy spoon kitchen. Clearly this place has had a facelift. So it was an interesting place. Now, the date was, like I said, was kind of a dud though. We were sitting at the table and we got, waiting for the food, and there's not a lot of talking. Just kind of sitting there, sharing the space together. And, before coaching, one of the things I would do in that space is, I'd wait, like I'd have these thoughts around, he always makes me start the conversation. I have to lead these things. I wish that my partner would contribute and share and bring up things and have interesting things to talk about. Why does it always have to be me? Right? Sometimes I would get into that space. And when there's not a lot of conversation happening, I might go down the road of they're mad at me, or something's going on at work and he's feeling stressed, or looking for danger, looking for all the ways that we're not very compatible, or we're not connected, or we're not interesting to each other anymore, or we've lost that sparkle or special feeling, all these kinds of things. This is the road that my brain would have gone down before coaching, right? This is the road that my brain went down when we were in that space of not doing well in our relationship, when we are spinning down into this kind of negative spiral that really took us to our deepest, lowest place. But because I've had coaching, because I am in the practice of watching my brain, of watching my thoughts, of being able to catch when these ideas pop into my head. Because let me tell you, they still popped into my head. I did have this, I just kind of wasn't in the mood to lead a conversation. I didn't have anything particular like I wanted to share or discuss. And so I was just kind of being quiet. I was feeling quiet in myself. And I did have the pop up in my brain come up of, well, wonder how long we're going to sit here in silence, because I'm the one supposed to start the conversation. He always waits for me to start the conversation. And I noticed it and I saw that. And I know when I start thinking in that way, that my whole presence changes, my whole demeanor changes. And frankly, it doesn't invite my partner to share or to talk. It kind of puts him on the spot, in the hot seat. Even if I don't say it to him, my whole way of being and communicating with him ends up putting him kind of in a defensive space, right? Like, I've got to, show up. Something's going on over there, right? He can tell. And so then he also gets into this searching for danger kind of thing. The truth is, I wasn't feeling that great. Turned out later, I was tired and it was a long day and I just wasn't feeling that great. And it also turned out the thing that my husband was most curious about talking about and what was going on in his head was watching this other guy who had come in from the parking lot. He had watched him put his sweatshirt on. He couldn't get his head through his sweatshirt and struggled with it. It was sort of funny. But then when he came into the restaurant, the sweatshirt actually said something kind of offensive on it. So we were a little not wanting to say something in front of this guy, right? We're not going to like stir up trouble. But we're sort of both thinking about this other guy and wanting to talk about it, but he's sitting at the table pretty close to us, so it's not going to happen then. So my husband was really kind of in this conversational space that he was wanting to have, but not wanting to have it in front of this guy. As soon as he left, then he starts talking and we start, jibber jabbering about that. And he does lead the conversation. But part of him having space to be able to do that is me catching myself of catching this like negative evaluation that I was wanting to put on the space. And this is all something that through coaching and through the practice of watching myself and watching our relationship that I've been able to develop so I don't go down those negative spiral places. And then I found it very interesting actually to watch the whole rest of the evening kind of play out. Because there was lots of triggering kind of events that happened in this evening. The other thing that was going on is my husband is trying to practice hydrating more, which of course means that he's got to go pee a lot. So he was terribly uncomfortable in this long drive. We actually had to stop on the way down so that he could go to the bathroom. And by the time we got home, it was like getting out of the car and going back, and going pee again, because you drink a lot of water, especially when you're sort of newly onto a hydrating schedule. It really just kind of flushes through you. It always seems ridiculous. How is this helping anything, right? But the consequence of that, like super normal thing, is he was uncomfortable. He was kind of groaning and moaning and fitful. And again, at a time before I had coaching, I would always take this kinds of thing of him having an emotional response, some sort of emotional response, and make meaning out of it. Meaning about me, meaning about us, something I need to fix. There's a problem going on. I didn't know how to really create space between the emotional response, what was happening for my partner, and myself. I'd kind of just dive right into it and stir up the mess. So when you're looking at, I don't know if you can identify with any of these things, is really why I share them, is to look to yourself when you have a bad date, right? Or a bad interaction with your spouse. We want to be in the practice of putting a little pause in there and see, gosh, what am I making this mean, right? What do I make it mean that we're both not talking at the dinner table? What do I make it mean when my partner is clearly uncomfortable but not saying something about it? What do I make it mean when I'm showing up to our coveted date night tired and unengaged, right? Am I making this mean something beyond I'm tired? I need some quiet time, right? And do I make it mean that something's wrong, or do I make it mean that it's the most amazing thing that I can need some tired and quiet time and be with my partner, right? That my partner has space to love and enjoy me, even in the times when I'm feeling tired and he has to go pee a lot. It's sort of funny in retrospect, but in the moment, these kinds of things can be really painful. They add up over time. We make meaning, and this is just a normal human thing that we do, is to take an interaction, to take an activity, and we have to interpret it. Our brain needs to interpret it and put it into certain boxes, right? Like a filing cabinet in our brain. What did this activity most match up with? And what did that mean, right? And so somebody who's moaning and displaying, feeling not happy, right? That means something is wrong. And when you have a pattern of something's wrong with me, you might make that mean something's wrong with you. Or if you have a thinking pattern, something's wrong with us, something needs to change. So we want to look for and see, what meaning are you giving this quote bad date? It's only a bad date if that's the way I choose to define it. When I let my uncoached brain go down the negative spiral of meaning, then I'm going to judge it and evaluate it as a bad date. I want to make sure, though, and this is what in coaching I've practiced, is not to just believe the first meaning that my brain comes up with, and to see, is there possibly other meanings, right? Is there possibly another way to look at this, to think about sitting at a table and not talking to each other, eating food silently? How many different ways could I think about that scenario, right? It could be this very tender experience of really truly knowing each other, of having lots of communication that's happening, but not out of our mouths, because we know each other's rhythms and subtleties, right? There was actually some communication going on about this other guy without using our mouths. But if I'm not looking for those things, I'm not going to see them. If I'm looking for problems, if I'm looking for negative meaning, or meaning that feels negative in my body, that is what I'm going to find. So if you've gone out and you've had a bad date, or an interaction that you would label as a bad interaction with your partner, I'd encourage you to take a moment and to just really name what exactly happened without judgment. Can you say, just give the facts, right? The facts are, we walked into a restaurant, we talked about what to order, we sat there not talking to each other, we made some eye contact, we looked around. When this guy left, then we talked, right? Just really ordinary, being really factual about the things that's happening. Then get curious with yourself of, what are all the different ways I could make it mean? You might want to look somewhere else, like, what could somebody else make it mean, right? Just to let your brain kind of open up to other possible views. It's really helpful to just see how many different views, how many interpretations that could be made of the same circumstance, of the same scenario. Because it's not the same. Everybody has different ways of interpreting it. And even the two of us at the table, because we're both two unique human beings, are going to have two different ways of interpreting it. Or maybe even we each have our own 15 different ways that we could possibly interpret it. This is the magic of having a relationship with another human being, is they don't see the world the same way as we do. They do have their own perspective. They do value and share things that are different than us. We don't want, as much as sometimes we think we want them to be the same and we think we want them to act the way that we think they should act, the truth is, we want them to be their own unique human being, right? And having ourselves being open to other interpretations, and see if there's one that feels a little better to you. You don't have to go from it feels terrible to feels wonderful, but something that might be a little more neutral for you. That seems true. It's believable. It seems true. This is another way that I could interpret this time. And just be curious with yourself. How would I show up differently to the next date? with that kind of space, with that kind of interpretation of whatever is going on. All right, my friends, be committed. Be committed to finding a time to get out and have a date. So you can have a bad date or you can have a good date, right? Either one is going to give you a chance to be with your spouse and to learn more about yourself and them. Be present. Really just show up to that date. Show up for the good, show up for the bad, show up for yourself, show up for your partner. Just really be in the moment as much as possible. That brain wants to take you to the past, take you to the future, but really just show up and show up with curiosity and love for yourself and for your spouse. I promise you will grow and change and have more connection when you do. All right, I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you can get every episode. And when you are ready to be in action, come find us. Facebook, Instagram, or our website. It's all the same name, relationshipsonfire.com. We've got that S on there. There's lots of us having relationships. So relationships with an S on fire.com. Thanks so much. Saying goodbye, your fire and water gal, Cori Myka. See you next time.